Hello, Year 9 and 10, and welcome to yet another week of working from home. Although Year 10s, I do hope that you enjoy going back into school for one day this week. We're going to start this lesson by recapping what we've looked at so far. A few weeks ago, you read an article by Ben Cameron where he told us that theatres aren't ready to cope with the new technology. And he said audience numbers were falling because people were staying home and watching films on Netflix or on YouTube or on their televisions. The Stage article, however, disagreed and told us that theatres have adapted really well to the pandemic, and online audiences, through things like National Theatre Live, have increased massively and more people than ever are viewing theatre. Last week, you listened to David Sabel, who works at the National Theatre, talk about National Theatre Live, which he helped create, which has filmed live productions and streamed them in over 700 cinemas in 60 countries. And you watched at least 30 minutes of National Theatre Live's Coriolanus with Tom Hiddleston. And I do hope you enjoyed that. Our focus this week, though, is not looking at how theatres are using technology to show plays online, but how theatres are using technology in the theatre and in their plays. What you can see in front of you is a plain, empty drama studio. Very identical, actually, to the one that was in the university I went to. And my question to you is this a stage? And how would we take this space and turn it into theatre? What do we need to create theatre? There's a man called Peter Brook. He's influential in drama and theatre. And he made a very controversial statement, which you can see here. And he said, I can take any empty space and call it a bare stage. A man walks across this empty space whilst someone else is watching him. And this is all that is needed for an act of theatre to be engaged. A stage space has two rules. One, anything can happen. And two, something must happen. So in Peter Brook's opinion, any space in the world can be turned into theatre. If someone is walking across and someone is watching, that is theatre. Now that's a very controversial statement, isn't it? Because that's very different to the theatre we know. But today we are going to look at what can we take from an empty space, what can we put into it to turn it into theatre, apart of course from people. So what do we need to make theatre? Well, I've just said it there. We need actors. Duh. It's pretty obvious, right? Of course, a clip there, picture from, everyone knows I'm obsessed with Hamilton at the moment, 2 weeks, and then it is going to be streamed free on Disney Plus, for those of you that are interested in watching it. So we need actors. What else do we need to make theatre? Well, the basics. We need costume, hair and makeup. We need a set. Big pieces that the actors can interact with and that make it clear where is this play happening. And then we need props, the smaller items. Props is short for properties and props that actors can hold, which they can interact with, which helps extend the story, make it realistic for the audience. Now, we know these things, don't we? You've used these in performances in class, and you've used it on stage when we've had things like Bugsy Malone. Then we move to slightly more complicated things we need, but we need lighting. We need sound. That's a soundboard through which a sound director can control the microphones and can play music and sound effects. And then sometimes people use technology, projections, modern technology, but this has been used for about 20 years. But is that it? Is that all we need? Well, I mean, yes, you could make theatre definitely with just these bare elements. But theatres have been adapting and creating even more exciting things. So let's move to probably the most complicated, but also the most exciting. We have pyrotechnics, flames, fire being used in theatre. We've got smoke machines, And we've got things like fly rigs. Now, rig is the word for the almost like the machine that they use to help actors fly. These are very exciting, and if you've seen any plays with these in, you've already witnessed how technology can improve a performance, can make it more engaging, more exciting, feel more real. And it got me wondering, thinking about this, where is theatre going to go? If we've already got these kind of things, what possible else can it do? So what is the future of theatre? So I did some research and I realised that it's called technodrama or mixed reality. And these are just a few examples of what's being done in the theatre industry. So they're playing around with 3D projections, not just projecting onto a flat surface, but projecting 3D so it looks like there's real people on stage. They're using 3D printers to not only design the sets and the set models, but to actually create props and objects that the actors use on stage. They're using CGI animation to create characters. That there is the Tempest, and they've used, instead of having an actor playing the fairy Ariel, they've got a CGI character they've made. And then most bizarre and most innovative, there's actually plays and theatres that are starting to look at how they can get the audience to use their mobile phones in a performance. This one here is interactive theatre, where they're using their phones, they download an app and they interact with the actor and the stage and they control what happens, which is bizarre but incredibly exciting. But how does all of this come together to make theatre? More than that, what impact does it actually have? You can have exciting lighting, you can have flames and pyrotechnics, and actors can be flying across the stage, but does that make theatre? And what's the point of using it? Now, there's a really good video that I want you to watch now that's going to explain this way better than I could. So what I want you to do is, in a minute, I want you to pause this video and I want you to go to this video here, okay? So you'll go to the link at the bottom of the video you're on now. You'll press the link and you will open up here. Hopefully you can press, sometimes if you right click, there's an option that says open in new tab. If you do that, it'll open up here so you don't lose your place in my video. But this is a really exciting video filmed in Sydney, looking at the way we can use video and audio and lighting and actors to create effect, to entertain the audience and to change the emotion and the atmosphere in the theatre we're trying to perform. Okay, so if you haven't yet, pause this now and watch the video, but please do not complete the quiz yet. Lovely, so hopefully you enjoyed that video. I found it really entertaining actually, especially seeing the different types of lights. So I thought we could look at the different types of lamps or lanterns, and that's the name for the lights, for example, up here, that you see in our classroom. So what is the point of lighting? Well, there's 4 purposes, clear purposes. 1, creating mood and atmosphere. If you've got a scary play, you can use lighting to create that scary atmosphere. Number 2, to denote the time of day or year. Is it winter? In which case, is the lighting dimmer and got a blue hint to it? Is it the bright midday in July, in which case it's going to be really bright and you might have an orange glow? The 3rd point is to draw the audience's attention to a specific part of the stage. If you've got an actor right at the front and they're the only thing you want the audience to look at, you might put a spotlight on them. And lastly, lights can be used in a symbolic way. So for example, if a scene you want the audience to realise this is dangerous, danger is coming, you might put a red light on stage to symbolise that. You know this, you've used all of these in your performances. And what we're going to look at now are 3 or 4 actual types of lamps. So we're going to start with an easy one, that's called the spot. You might know it as a spotlight, but the actual lamp is called the spot. So it has a hard-edged effect used to light characters or elements on the stage. So if you look, that is very hard, isn't it? It's very clear where it ends at the side. Similar, but not quite the same, is the Fresnel. It looks like Fresnel, but it's pronounced Fresnel. So that's used for a slightly softer edge. It has a lens at the front which diffuses the light. You should all know what that means from science. And it means that the lighting at the edge almost fades into dark as opposed to just being a straight edge finish. It's useful for overall light when used with others. And again, you can use coloured filters with it, which we're going to look at in a minute. And lastly, we've got the flood. You should recognise that one. We've got loads of those up in the drama studio. This produces a clear, wide-angled light, but there's little control over the spread of the light. So it produces loads of light. You could use it to light the whole stage. When we use these in the drama studio in your performance, I might have one that does the right side of the stage and one that does the left side of the stage. So they're really good at lighting the whole stage. The only downside is that they are not great if you want to have light in a specific place, if you only want to light one part, because it lights so much. Here's my little sciencey bit. So if we look at this, we've got a spotlight or a Fresnel. You can see that by 30 feet, it is only 8.4 meters wide, the light, which is quite far. But when you compare it to a floodlight, after 30 meters, it's 42 feet wide. So clearly the floodlight can light, you can probably do the maths, what's that, 5 or 6 times as much space, which is why we would use a floodlight in this example here to light up the whole stage. Now this light has got a hard edge, therefore we know that it is a spotlight. And this light has a more faded edge, which means that it is a Fresnel. Try and remember that because that's going to come up in the quiz. And then we move on to my favourite type of lighting, which is gels and gobos. So gels look like this. And they are pieces of plastic that are coloured that you slot into this frame here. And then you slot that into the lamp. And then when the light shines through it, the light goes through the plastic and then becomes the colour of the plastic. You've seen it in drama, we've got a blue gel on one of the lights in there. A second thing that you can put at the front of the lamp is called a gobo. And a gobo are cut-out designs on metal that are slotted into the front of the lamp, and they produce a pattern on the ground. So here you can see they've shined a gobo that the design is trees. So the light is only coming out at the top bits, which gives a silhouette. You can see here people have used it for windows and lots of designs. We've used it in the drama studio performances before as trees. And it's a really exciting effect that just makes the atmosphere feel a bit clearer. So that's lighting. Hopefully you can remember those terms. If you don't think you can, go back a few minutes and rewatch this part of the video because you are going to be quizzed on lighting. So that leads me to your task now. You're going to go to the second task on Show My Homework and complete the quiz using your knowledge from this lesson and the video filmed in Australia. So now I want you to pause this video and complete these tasks and come back in a minute. And now on to the last task. I want you to read through the scene plotline that I'm going to read out below. You're going to decide on what theatre technology you would use to make it more theatrical and add to the atmosphere. Now, that can include the lighting. So what type of lights? Would you have a spotlight, a Fresnel or a flood? And what colour? Or would you use a gobo? What sound would you use? Would you have music underscoring it? Would you have sound effects being made by actors? Would you have sound effects being pre-recorded and played through speakers? And would you have projections? You must also explain why you would do this. This should be 1 paragraph minimum. I'm going to read this now. Tom and Jenny are walking down the street hand in hand. They're smiling. The sun is shining. All of a sudden, the sky goes dark and they hear thunder in the distance. They turn around to run home, but there is a suspicious man stood right behind them. He has an odd look on his face, and they feel scared. They freeze. So you're imagining that you're the director and all you've got at the moment is an empty stage and actors that can act this scene out. So essentially, what lighting, sounds and projections are you adding to make the audience really experience this scene? As usual, there's 2 submission ways. We've got handwrite your answer and take a picture and submit on Show My Homework, or write as a comment in the comment box on Show My Homework. And the last thing for me to say is, have fun.